service is a good thing. John and I are not going to tell you that nobody should help other people and nobody should do service projects. But we will tell you that making national service compulsory is not necessary. Compulsory is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as mandatory or enforced. And there is no reason why the United States should force people to do service projects. Volunteerism is already on the rise. There is no place for these service people to work, and it is logistically impossible, as well as a taking away from our basic freedoms. Mandatory service is not needed. The number of people who volunteer in our country is on the rise. In 2009, about 63.4 million Americans volunteered in some way over the year, which is an increase in the number of people who volunteered the previous year. People are interested in volunteering, and they should be, for the many reasons that the affirmative team pointed out. But making national service mandatory is not needed. The affirmative team told us that citizens who are forced to do this national service can join groups, but groups like the Peace Corps and Teach for America and other organizations cannot effectively take in so many volunteers and wouldn't even want to take in so many volunteers. Last year, the Peace Corps had 11,000 applicants, and of those 11,000, they only accepted 4,000. This means that almost 2/3 of the volunteers interested in joining were denied. Last year, Teach for America had over 35,000 applicants, and only about 4,500 were accepted. They had to turn away 88% of all people who applied. The people who applied were motivated, hardworking, and were 100% interested in joining these organizations. And still, most of them got turned away. Imagine how many people would apply to be in the Peace Corps or Teach for America if they were forced to do service. Now, instead of trying to pick 4,000 out of 35,000 applications, they would be trying to pick 4,000 out of 350,000 applications, or maybe even 3 million applications. The best people for these programs are already in the programs. And by making national service mandatory and forcing people to sign up for these programs, we would just be flooding the system without improving the quality of the applicants for these organizations. Because programs like Teach for America and the Peace Corps do not want any more volunteers, what are the rest of the volunteers going to do? What are 26.5 million 18 to 24-year-olds going to do during their service time? How many people can you squeeze behind the counter at the food shelter before you get people just standing around, making it harder for the people who are actually trying to work to do their job? Why would we force people to give up their time if we do not have an effective thing for them to do? The idea of everyone doing national service sounds good on the surface, but as soon as you start digging, a fountain of problems pour out. Keeping track of how many hours of service 26.5 million Americans have done over 6 years is a ridiculous and almost impossible thing to do. Putting in place a system that can keep track of all these people would mean that the government would have to put thousands of more people on its payroll just to manage all of these service hours. This year, to count up every person in America, it's going to cost the U.S. Census Department $14.5 billion, and they have to hire over 475,000 people. And this is only to get one form per family once every 10 years. The number of people and the cost it would take to track every single hour 26.5 million people worked is just unimaginable. It is an absolute paperwork and bureaucratic nightmare. And if somehow they managed to successfully keep track of who did how many service hours, what would happen to the people who did not complete their hours? Would we send them to jail? Would there be a warrant out for your arrest on your 25th birthday because you didn't give enough time at the animal shelter down the street? What happens if someone moves to another country between the ages of 18 and 24? What happens if someone moves into the country sometime after they're 18? Do they have to put their life on pause to try to fit in all their community service hours before they turn 25? Again, this compulsory national service sounds like a great idea, but logistically and realistically, it is a nightmare. Another reason that national service should not be made mandatory is that it chips away at the basic fundamental of our country, and that is freedom. Making national service mandatory is not going to turn us into a totalitarian nation, but America is the land of opportunity, where your life is in your hands and you can make of it what you want. Instead of making national service mandatory and completely changing the lives of young Americans, instead, why don't we support service projects by simply encouraging people to help out? Jumping right from where we are now to mandatory national service is a very big leap. Instead of forcing people to do these good deeds, let's start by just encouraging them. Schools can encourage their students to go out and help by planning a day of service, or a volunteer convention where organizations set up tables in the gym and explain about their organization and why it should help out. Maybe some posters and billboards will do the trick, or TV and internet advertisements. Instead of assuming that we need to force people to do service projects, let's start by asking and encouraging people to do service projects and see where that leads. Everyone doing service projects and helping others is a great thing, but making everyone do national service projects is totally unnecessary. Think about how the idea of compulsory national service undermines our constitutional freedom to choose. It is wonderful that so many people choose to do good deeds and help others. It is equally wonderful and constitutionally guaranteed that we are not mandated to do anything with our time. Right now, we are at war and do not have compulsory military service. That is because we have the volunteers we need, and we only make people surrender their most precious freedoms, control of their time, as a last resort. When we needed help after Hurricane Katrina, millions of volunteers responded. And we as a country were proud of our ability to help those in need. The outpouring of help for Haitian earthquake victims was also America at its best. We rise to the occasion because we are a good, caring country. When it is mandated that we serve, we have lost our freedom of individuality, our freedom to help when and where we deem it most urgent, and our spirit of volunteerism. The opposition demands compulsory volunteerism. These contradicting words push away the goodness and the spirit of young America. Thank you.